stories begin with the words once upon a time. And this one will too, because this is a very good story.
I didn't hear about Trinity. I thought about wanting a school.
Nancy Brooks had a meeting in her sunroom in about 1994, and it was a group of a lot of moms in the community who were interested in starting a school for their children.
I think I remember sort of naively saying, well, I'll go home and ask my husband if he would help do that.
And then I remember getting a letter in the mail from a friend who had his kids at the Geneva School in Orlando, Florida, which was a classical Christian school, and he sent me a copy of Dorothy Sayers' The Lost Tools of Learning. And I remember one Sunday afternoon at our house on Colony Woods Drive, sitting down and reading that and thinking, this is the kind of school that I would love to have my kids at. January 23rd, 1995, we wrote about eight people and invited them to come to our house on February the 1st to talk about the possibility of a new school.
I showed up at the Denton household on February 1st, 1995, where Chip pulled together, I'm going to say 6-8 people. Kathy Tyndall was there, Nancy Brooks was there.
David English and Pat Kiefer and David Hostetler and Bob Bird and Jim Lamont and Nancy Brooks.
Chip asked each one to say what they dreamed of for the school, what special aspects they were interested in. The funny thing is, I don't believe one person in that room knew what all the other people were talking about. So I think that was a pretty funny meeting. And because of that start, we had to begin defining what we meant.
One of my vivid memories is trying to sleep while the board meeting's raging till midnight in the sun porch, and not really fighting, but vociferously stating opinions on differing matters. And so I got acquainted with Trinity School day and night.
It was a labor of love, very much so, and I think we were all energized by the thoughts of others, the things we read, and just excited to be a part together of this new project that was very intentionally thought through. It wasn't just, let's have a school, we need a teacher, we need some books, we need some students.
I got a call at it was probably about 11 o'clock, and I remember thinking, they called me at 11 o'clock to tell me that they hired me, but then I learned that board meetings just went on a really long time back then.
Dave and I did the first marketing for the school. We met at local churches throughout the Durham, Chapel Hill area and did a little, what we called a dog and pony show, and here's the vision for this school.
We're not interested in simply informing our students, we're interested in humanizing them. We're interested in having them not only be able to recall and recite these poems and songs, but to value them.
The early years and just trying to stir up some students, and the first students, actually I remember taking the check from the first students, was Ben and Davis Murphy. You know, when you get your first customers, you kind of note that, and they were the first two that, and I thought, wow, this is proof of pudding. Somebody's going to pay to do this.
Hope Creek Church is where the school first met, and my first memories are the first day of school. All of the students' names were written in chalk all over the sidewalk, that little entry to the side of the building where we would come in. And there were balloons, and the children were dressed up, and the parents were all excited. I mean, these were like pioneer people. They were ready for the adventure.
Well, I think about the initial face of Trinity, which was 3 teachers, Rita Davis, Gay Lyles, and Karen Sicking, who anchored our kindergarten through grade 4 program.
There was really no administration the first year of the school. We had a a part-time administrative assistant that we hired. I think she was there 20 hours a week, and that was it. And so we had all the challenges of starting something and making everything up from the beginning. There was nothing that we could rely on and say, well, how'd we do it last year? And so we had to do research, and we had to have our debates and discussions about it. And then the board was really managing the school, which was a challenge, first of all, and then secondly, it's not really what boards are supposed to be doing. But we didn't have an administrator to do it. And so it took an enormous amount of time and energy, and I think people were really invested in this and cared deeply.
I think we were drawn to the school because of the feel of inclusion. We loved the outreach to all different kinds of kids. We were drawn by the small size class, but really it was the Christ-centered education that was not rammed down anybody's throat, but was just an arms wide open. And the schools really continued with that arms wide open approach, and that is just was a magnet before, is a magnet now, I think.
I think it's been evident every day that Trinity's been special in a lot of people's lives. I mean, we saw it with our kids. It was early years, and maybe not the facilities in the early years that parents would have hoped for, but we knew it in the teachers, we knew it in the challenges, we knew it in the way that problems were handled.
Fred Brooks knew I'd hired a lot of people, and so he had me on the search committee, and Chip Denton was on the search committee too, and early on we asked him if he was interested in being the headmaster, and he said no, he was not interested. So we did this nationwide search, was for such a little school, maybe was over the top. We got down to 8 finalists, and then we arranged video interviews with the finalists. And it became evident as we got to the end of the process that we hadn't seen anybody that seemed like they would be satisfactory. Now, also serving as chair of the board and on the search committee was Chip, who was then associate pastor of Good Shepherd Church. And so the rest of the committee came to the conclusion that Chip would make an ideal headmaster, and so then undertook the process of our praying over it, his praying over it, and a certain amount of persuasion.
Another milestone was the purchase of land for the school, and we had a blue ribbon land and building committee.
Early on, the Land and Building Committee met at our dining room table, and they kept pulling out maps and looking all over Orange County and Durham County, any place that would be large enough for a school, and for a school that we were calling Trinity School of Durham in Chapel Hill. And when this land became available and saw that really the county line went right through the middle of this piece of property, I think it felt like a real blessing from God.
John Sanders, who managed a local real estate company, and I'd known John, great Christian man, he gave me a call one day, and he said, Bill, he said, I think the Branch family would be interested in selling some of their land to you. I don't want any fee, just send me a fruit basket if you're able to buy the land. And of course, that land ended up being the land that we're on. He got his fruit basket.
Leading into the first year that we were actually building the building, the first building, and the energy and excitement that came with going from renting space to having our own space, and really feeling like we were establishing ourselves as a school. that there was a lot of stress, but a lot of joy that came with that.
The lower school building seemed mighty big. But very quickly the teachers made it beautiful inside.
Big milestone for my children was the expansion of the athletic program. And Andrew was in middle school and got to play on a soccer team for Trinity, and we hadn't had a soccer team before.
The biggest single decision we made was to start a high school, and there were decisions before that to not start one right yet, because we set out to start one and then we concluded that we didn't have what it took. So we put it off for 5 years, which was very painful for some of the parents whose children therefore missed the Trinity High School experience. And we met maybe every 2 weeks for a couple of years putting together the high school curriculum.
I think one vivid memory has to be our first high school graduation. We'd had 8th grade graduation in lots of different styles and ways, but to be under a tent and have a graduation that was our own students and our own band and our own board there saying, "Well done, seniors," to me that will always be one of the very sterling moments.
I think it was that graduation in 2010 of the first class that was really powerful for me. That was something we had talked about, because from the beginning we said we wanted to be a K through 12 school and then later changed to TK through 12 school. And so it was 2010 before that vision came to fruition.
Most everything has changed, and it's been exciting at the beginning, early on, for many years to have been a direct part, and even now more from afar looking on. I mean, just as Rick referred to earlier, just standing, gazing out the window of this first building, and then seeing the additional buildings and the beauty, and just knowing all the extracurriculars, the engaging academics that have continued to be a priority. It's just had wonderful changes.
It's also been interesting to see how we went from a time where nobody in this county knew of Trinity School to now card decals are all over the town, and people routinely bring up Trinity to me as something that not only do I not know about, but I need to know about. And and when I hear that with a great sense of pleasure, and I would say even pride.
But Trinity started out with a culture, a personality of its own. Charlotte Mason's philosophy, the ideas and the concepts of classical studies, those things are more than a way of teaching. They are a way of being.
Well, one, it looks a whole lot more professional than when we started. It looks like there's a whole lot more people around here knowing what they're doing. It's impressive. But the results are in the pudding when I keep seeing these graduates that are coming out and hearing about these kids and where they're going and what they're doing and the stories behind them winning awards and competition. That's the intangibles, right? That's the proof of something here is working.
84 churches are represented out of our 250 families. Now that widens eyes, because that says that we are in fact holding to the core of Christianity and not stuck on any of the peculiar doctrines that have differentiated churches. We are teaching what Lewis called mere Christianity and its worldview from an evangelical viewpoint, but not a peculiar doctrinal viewpoint. And that's rather rare among Christian schools anywhere, and it is quite rare in this community as a place where people sharing these common views meet through their children and through school activities.
Over the years, God has brought so many people in and through Trinity who have made an impact. that each person who has really stepped foot through the door in some way or another has had an opportunity to shape who Trinity is today. And one of the things that I talk with faculty and staff who come through that I have the opportunity to get to know is the admonition that God gives us not to worry about tomorrow. That's true for Trinity too, that God has this wonderful plan for this place, and particularly to look back 20 years, you see that plan begin to unfold. And for me, it's neat to have been part of that foundation, to be part of Trinity's infancy and childhood and adolescence, and to get to see where we go from here.